Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with Reach the Unlimited. We're back for another week of our show, and I am so thrilled and excited to have Megan with us today. Megan is an amazing person. I've known her for a short period of time, really, but for a while. And she's an amazing medium and amazing person, but hilarious. And the thing I love about her, and I'll let her tell a little about herself to you, is that she is a natural born teacher and she does it with humor, which I love. So Megan, I was going to call you Alisa. I forgot to say your name because I was thinking about your how you teach and do things. But tell everybody a little about yourself, please.
Sure. Hi. I am an evidential psychic medium.
Mhm.
I've gone through training and development. Not that we're ever fully developed as mediums, but I like to teach about mediumship, and I like to help people with understanding more about the spirit world, not being afraid of the spirit world. Trying to also help people understand, what's what when it comes to this sort of stuff, because there's so much out there that can be misleading. So I do that a lot through TikTok and making, videos that, like you're saying, are somewhat more humorous, and sometimes they can be more serious. It just depends.
Yeah.
But I like to help. And it makes me feel so good to know that there's people that come and say, you're making a difference
Mhm.
for me. I used to be really afraid of the spirit world, and now I'm not. And like that means so much to me to hear that, because that's what I want to be able to do for people.
Right.
And then obviously I do readings, I do private readings, I do demonstrations of mediumship, and I also do trance energy healing. And that's pretty much me.
It's a good point what you say, because you do have some of the more serious things about mediumship or about the spiritual world. And the thing that I love about it, though, is that you do take some of the more serious things on occasion and make it humorous, because there are a lot of funny things that go on in this world or in the spiritual world as well. So I just love that you're able to bring that humor in, because for me, especially like on this particular subject, as a lot of people around me know, this has been a topic that's been kind of on my mind for a while, about mediums that are really not doing mediumship, that it's an important issue, because that's something that's really personal and sensitive to us when we bring our loved ones through. So to be able to speak about it in both ways, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. I definitely feel that sort of sensitivity about it as well,
Mhm.
because obviously, we're working with people that are vulnerable, that are in bereavement, that are seeking guidance, help, and evidence, and healing. And so, if we're not really providing that in a way that is helpful to them,
Mhm.
and in a clear way, I think that we're missing the mark.
Yeah. So you talked about I think your platform is kind of an overall umbrella of spirituality. And
Mhm.
one of the biggest things I know for me along my journey, as I've talked about, is coming through that religious background into the beliefs, right? Changing your beliefs. And a lot of people do have a lot of fears about it. What do you think are some of the biggest fears, and what would you say to help them through those fears? I know there's a big
There's
gamut
so
of,
many. Yeah, there's so many. I'm like,
like, the biggest, like, top ones that people
yeah. So most of the time it's that they're afraid of evil spirits or
feel.
demons and that sort of thing. And as an evidential medium, I have never found ever um, that there's anything in the spirit world remotely like that. I've only ever felt love and support from the spirit world. And so I've definitely, tried to help people understand that, and to understand that they're basically taking their cultural beliefs or religious beliefs and the
Mhm,
things that they've been told,
mhm,
and framing everything around that. So, that is one of the big ones. Also, things like, in Christianity, obviously mediumship is not exactly looked upon in a way that is
mhm,
good,
mhm,
so those sorts of things. Trying to think of other big things people have mentioned to me. But it's really a lot of the fear. It's really about the fear of it. And that's where I really try to just help people take a step back to understand that if we can experience something as just an experience, just like,
mhm,
Michael Mayo says, that's who I learned this from,
Mhm.
essentially, is, that when I joined his development circles, I
Mhm.
learned that there's nothing to fear of the spirit world. And that has always been true. But it's about learning how to step away from our
Mhm.
biases, our fears, and all of that to be able to get clear communication. If we're
Mhm.
tainting it with our own minds, then that's not
Mhm.
clear communication from the spirit world.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Shout out to Michael. He's been
Yeah.
on. If you guys look back, you'll find an interview with Michael Mayo. He's amazing. But the fear thing, I totally agree with you, because if it's in our mind, then that's what we're going to conjure up. That's what we're going to be focusing on. Where if we know that spirit is just pure love,
Yeah.
then we're going to go into it with a pure heart, and we're going to be a lot more open to what is there for us to experience or for us to learn. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because you have to be open and relaxed and in a state
Mhm.
of that to really connect with the spirit world. And you can't be in fear and in that state at the same time. It's not possible to have that in the same moment. The other thing too is that, we raise our vibration up, right, to
Mhm.
one of love, and they are in a higher vibration. They have to come down a little bit to meet us in the middle.
Mhm.
And you can't have those lower vibrations in that place, that realm. That's not even possible, right?
Right.
They're at this high vibration, this love, and we have to raise our vibration to meet this. So
Mhm.
there's this sense of it's not even possible to necessarily have those sort of negative, scary things in these places that we keep saying are there. Plus, they're around us all the time. And
Yes.
the fact that they're around us all the time and our focus is shifted in one way or the other, either on the physical world or receiving their information, that would
Mhm.
mean that if there was something scary there, that they would be constantly attacking us, right? They'd be pure evil, right? Is they're not going to just reason with us or do something like that. They're going to constantly be trying to get at us. And that's not what happens, is it? You know what I mean? Like, no one's ever been, of course, there's going to be people that, what about exorcisms and blah, 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 blah. But, that's more of, again, I think the mind is incredibly powerful. And if we put that on ourselves, as far as
Mhm.
blaming our traumas and all that sort of thing on, oh, this is a demonic possession, then I
Mhm.
think that that's something that can be created. So,
Which I love the way you said. I don't want to go through this too fast, because what you said
yeah,
is really important, and I want to make sure that, because it's come up a couple times, but it's so important to remember that everything is energy and vibration, like you talked about, right? But it's also that the spiritual world is around us all the time, where we're taught that they're above in heaven or down
right.
below in hell, right? But as we know, as we're communicating with spirit, they're around us. They're just vibrating at a different level. So I love what you said about having people think about a lower vibration. If that was the case, we would be feeling that all the time. We would be
Yeah.
bombarded just like we can, not maybe not bombarded, but we would feel it just like we would our loved ones that are coming through. I just want to point that out, how important what you said.
Yeah.
It is. I think we pass over things like that because we
Yeah.
take that for granted, right? Because we understand it. We've experienced it and lived it. But for people that are not in mediumship, it's so important to realize that separation, that difference. It's really
Yeah.
important.
I think, obviously it's hard. And this is why I always encourage everyone to try to have their own experience with these things,
Mhm.
because that's what makes it real. You know what I mean? It's one thing to have someone tell you something,
Right.
and it's another to have an experience for yourself.
Mhm.
And, no one can ever take away your experiences.
Mhm.
We can learn to reframe them potentially, if maybe there's something that happened that made you afraid, um, and go back and to kind of look at maybe why that could have happened. But I
Mhm.
think that it's important to, do self discovery and to learn how to connect to that inner part of ourselves that is connected to all that is. Because, I believe that we're all spiritual beings and we're all spirit souls, and we all have that connection to
Mhm.
the other world and to one another because of it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I love that you're saying to, and it's something that I say a lot, to explore yourself. It doesn't, nobody is above anybody else that has the market on this or has this talent that nobody else has. We all have it. And so if
Mhm.
you sit in the quiet, if you do the self exploration, then you're going to have these experiences that will broaden your sensitivity and connection to spirit, which is really important.
Yeah. definitely the yeah, there are these mystical experiences that the great mystics talk about, and
Mhm.
those that do maybe yogis or Buddhists, and the whole gambit of the spiritual reality. We still have these ways, they teach us how to connect, and I think mediumship just kind of brings that even more to the tangible world in some way,
Right,
to be
right.
able to bring through like the evidence of it.
So, did you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm a medium"?
um
I know a lot of people think they can do that, but and
yeah.
you can, but what was your process?
Right. So I didn't know that I was a medium per se until I went to Michael's first development circle that I went to, that I just happened upon through another medium, saying, when I was searching, essentially, like I had a reawakening, and I had always had psychic things happen, and I've been told I communicated with a dead relative when I was very little that I
Mhm.
didn't know, but I don't remember. But basically, another medium during my search said, I think you're a medium. Here is this person's development circle. I think you'll
Oh,
really like him. Why don't you go to this? And I was like, okay, I guess so. I think it was like 2 days later, right? And I was like, I found myself there.
wow.
And yeah, and I sat in the power, and it was really an incredible experience. I'd never felt anything like it. I just felt like all this energy moved through me and around me, and it just felt like it exploded.
Mhm.
And then I found myself volunteering for demonstrating
Oh my.
for the very first, and there was like a
Oh
circle of like
my.
20 people. It was like a bigger circle,
Oh
and I
my.
just found my hand just like shooting up without any thought. It just went up when he asked if anyone else wanted to demonstrate. And he's like, I don't usually have people that are brand new to it, but let's give it a go and see what happens. So
Uh-huh.
basically he walked me through how to connect, and I had an awareness of a male energy that was there with me, a male person. And I
Yeah.
started to talk about that, and he was showing me things, and I was able to connect him with a person there in the circle. And so basically from that point on, I was like, holy crap, I didn't know I could do this. This is what I'm doing. Because it just, all of a sudden, everything in my life made sense.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And I just like really dove deeply into development. And, I was doing several development circles a week for like 2 years. So
Mhm.
I just, and, I've traveled to Arthur Finley College several
Mhm.
times. And I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well, or I'm
Mhm.
not going to do it at all. So that's just how I
Amen.
am. So,
Amen to that one.
yeah.
So I'm seeing a trait here with Michael though,
Yeah.
because Michael was the first one that I did that to, and I had no desire to really do mediumship, let alone platform mediumship, let alone any mediumship really. And I had signed up for a seminar that he was doing one of the weekends. That's the first time that I had met you.
That's
And,
right. Yeah. For the
and
platform
yeah,
workshop. Yeah.
and so he's like, "Does anybody want to come up here and do it?" And as my whole body was going, "No, no, no," my hand was going, "Yes, yes, yes."
Yeah. That's
I'd
literally like
never
how it
done that
happened with
before.
me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah. It's so
that's
funny.
funny. So through our journeys of, because to be I want to say, I like the word ethical mediumship in medium,
Mhm.
because in doing mediumship, you're dealing with very sensitive conversations and subjects and situations, and you have to be ready for all these things, which you talked a lot about already, doing your inner work. But it's also about getting the proper training to know what boundaries to stay in and not stay in, or whatever. How, like you had asked me, funny, if you guys, just a backstory, can uh certain colorful words be used in this interview? And I'm like, yes, it can. Like you were reaching out for your boundaries, like, what can I do? And I think that that applies also in mediumship, because there's a lot of people, especially now as we all are bound and Zoom and all this stuff, that more and more are popping up doing their platforms or whatever they're doing, which we're not putting any medium down or anybody particular down. We have nobody in mind, no agenda here other than to educate people on what to look for in a medium that's actually ethical and doing things in the right parameters. Because
Mhm.
I even in my practicing have had people do things that blow my mind. And when you're trained, you're able to go, oh, wait a minute, back up. But if you're not trained, then that can really mess people up. So do you want to talk a little about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of, pushing people toward development and training if they have any inkling of wanting to work with people in this manner. It's so important that not only just the mechanics of it and actually doing a good job of what you're bringing through, but how you say certain things, what you don't say,
Mhm,
understanding what's coming from the mind versus what could be coming from spirit. Like the discernment of it is incredibly important.
mhm,
Again, the way you deliver certain things, is so important. The boundaries of all of that, the ethics, is so incredibly important. And as a matter of fact, actually, since we're talking about this, Michael and I are teaching together a 6-week class starting March the 6th. And it is going to be a foundations class. So it is for beginning to intermediate mediums.
mhm,
And we're going to be covering the, nitty gritty of like all of this sort of thing that's incredibly important that we don't always get a chance to work on in just a normal development circle because we're there more for the activity of doing the mechanics.
mhm.
This is a way we can really kind of get in there and like really teach people the importance of all of this. So I definitely think that that's so important. Obviously, raising the standard of mediumship in general, I think is incredibly important, especially in the United States,
Yeah.
because I don't know what happened, but we just kind of went, we could do anything, and like that's just not the way it really is meant to go. Yes, you can deliver it in your own way, you know what I mean? As long as you are kind of hitting certain
Mhm.
ways you deliver it. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be your own medium.
Right.
Mediumship is expressed in its own way through each of us, and it's unique, and that's totally good and fine. But it's just a matter of, is it evidence or is it not evidence?
Mhm,
And because obviously I was trained more in the UK style spiritualist mediumship, and I do consider myself a spiritualist, even though I don't consider myself necessarily a religious
mhm,
spiritualist or religious person, just because I'm not one to be like, I'm this, you know what I mean? I'm more of a worldly view type of person,
mhm.
but they have a high standard of evidence and also understanding the power, understanding having a relationship with that power, having a relationship with your guides and your team, and all of these things are, I think, really incredibly important to a medium and understanding all this.
There was so much to unpack in that for somebody who may not understand this. So I'm
Yeah,
going to try to go back and do this slowly
yeah.
because there's a lot of what you said that's really serious, right?
Mhm.
So I agree with you. Everybody is their own person. So I'm not going to do a reading the same way you would do a reading because of our personality, but yet there's certain perimeters that you don't want to cross. But you were talking about the power, like getting to know the power, and also in the way that you're getting evidence. And I can't remember now exactly the word that you used, but describe to people so that like this is good for people that are wanting to be mediums, but also people that would see mediums, right? What would
Mhm.
you look for if somebody's actually giving you evidence versus fluff?
Right. Well, I have a good example of my own life, really. I went to somebody once that was like, you have fairy wings behind you, and the fairies love you and they like to be around you. And you need to go to the beach more because you need to have that water because of your connection with that. And I'm just like, none of that is evidence. You know what I mean? That's just sort of whatever that was. you know so evidence should be validated, so it should be information that is not known prior to that reading. Like most mediums, I don't want to know anything about you. You can tell me your name is Ned Flanders and it wouldn't make a damn difference to me. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Energy doesn't lie. You know what I mean? That's really what it's about. So um the evidence part is like, look for things that are specific, not just completely general. So specifics to that person that's coming through. They shouldn't be asking questions, they should be making statements. So because that can be considered fishing and also can bring us into our minds as a medium, which is not where we want to be going with mediumship at all. So those are things that are important. Yeah, the questions thing is a big thing that we, for whatever reason, do in America. That, I should say the United States, not just America, because I don't know about South America and how they do that, to be honest. But
Can you
it's a
before
problem.
you go into that, can you give an example of
Yep.
that? Because I
Sure.
we see the thing that
Sure.
bothers me about that the most is that when you're a sitter is the person that's getting the reading, and you don't really have a good understanding about mediumship or how it works, you don't even realize what's happening because you get so excited that your loved one is coming through that you have no idea that you're what we would call feeding the medium. So can you talk a little bit about that question issue and what's actually happening there?
So the medium might get a piece of information and give that to the person and be like, who's that? And you know what I mean? And so they're getting information from the sitter instead of being the medium and getting it from the spirit world. Like, we don't need the information from the sitter. We need to get it from the spirit world. So if they want us to know that, they'll give it. You know what I mean? It doesn't actually matter if the medium understands who that is or anything about what they're even saying, as long as it's accepted as true by the person that's receiving it. That's all that matters. It's not for us. That's all ego. If we need to know that, that's coming from ego. It's not coming from a place of being a neutral party, the in between, that you're just like, I'm an antenna that is receiving information and also giving out information. So those are things that are problematic, in my opinion, and can, there's cold readings, there's hot readings, there's all these sort of, ways that people are pulling information from the sitter instead of from the spirit world. And all of those are not considered ethical or good mediumship by any means.
You just said two terms I hadn't heard about. What is a cold sitter or a hot sitter? What is that?
A cold reading is when you're picking up on cues from the person. So like, you're waiting for their input, you're waiting for their expression, or you're looking at them and sort of like trying to pull things about them off of that. You know what I mean? Instead of getting information again from the spirit world and delivering it, you're doing it in a very different sort of way, which is not mediumship. A hot reading is when a medium would be going and researching somebody and getting information that way. So instead of, again, getting information from the spirit world, they are being not a medium and cheating people, essentially being charlatans. And that is another issue. That's another problem that mediums have to face, because there are people out there that do that. And that's just another thing another hurdle for us to jump over.
It is. And, sometimes I get upset about it because it just gives us a bad name, who work so hard to be ethical, to work so hard to really give that sitter what that sitter really is there to receive. But through all of my angst through this, as I've been experiencing more and more of that kind of action, I realize that everybody's on their own journey and they're learning their own lessons, and that we just have to keep being the best that we're going to be and ethical as we're going to be and doing the right thing, helping people. Because don't you feel, and through your experience, because you've been doing this for a while, do you feel like people walk away and in some part of their mind, they know that they've just been duped from someone who's not really being ethical? Whereas when they're working with you, that they walk away feeling, I really feel like I got what I had come for.
I would hope so, but I can tell you from experience of having going to a demonstration of a fraudulent medium just recently, that there are several people there that keep coming back to that same person and believing in what they're doing, and it's not real. It just isn't. So like, this person was collecting information from those coming to their demonstration about who they want to contact, things about themselves, like all these sorts of things that the medium doesn't need, and doing things that were just complete fraudulence. They were. I'm not going to name names, but but there's people there that said, "Oh, I've done this so many times and we keep coming back." So you would hope so, like you would hope, right? But no, I don't think that's always the case.
I don't mean the ones that are asleep. I mean the ones that are really. But you see something that's interesting, because this is really, and I'm even becoming more aware of some of the bigger name mediums that do this. And I actually went to someone who has a fairly big name who actually did that too. And I didn't think anything of it, because I'm just thinking it's for his marketing, sort of somebody's marketing or whatever. I didn't really think anything of it. And this was like way in the beginning before I started doing mediumship. So what you're saying is actually very valid about when you go to a demonstration and they want your name, then they can do the research on you.
Well, this was a little bit of a different situation. So obviously, like, okay, like for example, I have a demonstration coming up. The tickets are being done through my website, and through my website, you have to have a first and last name and an
Right.
email. You know what I
Right.
mean? You
Right.
can make up a name. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't even look at
Right.
it. You know what I
Right.
mean? But like for me, for what I had been involved with, they were asking for like the names of all the deceased
Right.
people I wanted to contact,
Right.
like that sort of thing, and my guides. And that is not needed, like whatsoever. If they take
Right.
your information for marketing purposes, which most people
Right.
do these days,
Right.
I don't
Yes.
necessarily think that means they're going to research you. You know what I mean? You have to
Right.
base it off of, what's their training, what's their reviews, what are you hearing, from other people that have had readings with them, what kind of information is being brought through, if it's something for you, could it, because there should be things like memories and like, very specific things that aren't posted online anywhere, that there's no way anyone else could know about these
Exactly.
things. And I do think you do feel the presence of spirit. Obviously, those that are more sensitive will
Mhm.
feel the presence of their loved ones there as the readings are going on. So, but yeah, so I think you have to just always have healthy skepticism when it comes to anything like this. I think is important because, it's unfortunate, but there are unscrupulous people out there. And
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is this
yeah,
guy asked for specific information. And what I wanted to say in that is just reiterating a little bit more at what you said, because it's a key component to someone who's going to have a reading is to understand that if a medium is really connected to your loved one is giving them all of the information that's going to be important for you at the time of that reading.
yeah,
And so you don't want to be giving information to that medium because then you're doing the work for the medium. And you're not, like you say, you can really feel your loved ones there. So you're going to even be robbing yourself of that connection to your loved one just by feeding that medium information that they should be doing because they're not doing the work. The spirit
right.
world. is doing the
No,
work.
definitely. And like I said, like for me, I hate when people give me information. I don't want to know that. I just want you to say yes, no, or I don't know. That's literally all I want you to tell me. Because I want to be the one that gives that information. You're taking that away from me.
Right,
Do you know what I mean? Like there's
exactly.
specific things I want to be the one that's able to perceive that and give that to you. And then usually when it comes to the messages, most of the time I found that they're relevant to your life now. So there's things that are going on in your life that maybe your loved one wants to talk about, that they're paying attention to your life and trying to give you some help or some encouragement or whatever. So, these are all things, again, that would be specific,
Mhm.
and not something that you would necessarily have, put all over the internet, hopefully. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't look at anything. Like, I don't want to know. I don't look at anything. I have no idea. And when I do lives, let's say,
Yeah.
when I go on Instagram live and do readings, I do demonstrations there, I have no idea who's coming.
Right.
And there's upwards to 100 people. I have zero idea who's there. I don't know anything about anybody. I just connect to the spirit people that come forward and I figure out who they're with and I have them come on the live and we do the reading and I move on to the next person. You know what I mean? So,
Which is important because you're showing the abilities that spirit is using through you. I just want to keep saying that because we're not doing anything at
yeah,
spirit using us as a voice box for the message. So
exactly.
I love what you said, and I want to go back to it because it's important about when you say the information to a medium, it's when you said, I want to be the one that's giving it to you, it's not because you're saying Megan wants to be the one that's giving it
No,
to you. It's you
yeah,
saying this loved one is speaking through me, and now you've now robbed yourself from this experience
yeah,
of having your father come through and say, this is what I want to say to you. So I just wanted to go
yeah.
back so people didn't misunderstand that too.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
mediumship doesn't come from us. Neither does our intuition or, psychic things. They don't come from us or from our mind. They come to us and through us.
right.
And so that's incredibly important to
Yeah.
understand.
Yes, very much so. So the other thing to unpack in that is the fact that in Europe, they have a totally different way of doing mediumship that we have here. But you didn't really talk very much about
Yeah.
the differences
Right.
between UK and
So, right. Okay. So, yeah. So, I mean, basically, when you say it's different, there's a standard.
that's a better word. Yes.
There's a standard, and the evidence has to be a part of that. The evidence and the presence, all of that is a part of the act of being a medium. And so in the UK, or I guess it's, yeah, across Europe, or people that are spiritualists, they're trained in this way, in this manner.
Right.
And they go every week or even twice a week, potentially, to these spiritualist churches, or they do mediumship. So there's a
Right.
high standard of like what they're expecting from mediums,
Mm.
that I think that we can meet. And I know this because we can look at the past, we can look at the pioneers of spiritualism and those mediums and see the amazing, amazing quality of evidence that was able to come through them. And, you know, we're still getting there, you know, in these times. And so
Right.
I know that there's some amazing, incredible things that can come through a medium. And so
Mhm.
that's why our development never should stop, because we should always be sitting for spirit, always be sitting to see what's possible within our mediumship, to be used as, you know, this voice of spirit, this temporary voice of spirit when we're working. I just think that there's so many incredible things that could potentially happen through, you know, because there's so many different forms of mediumship too. And I know that's a whole other topic.
Oh yeah.
But even with mental mediumship, I mean, Gordon Higginson's a good example. Like you're talking about before we started the live, I think. we were
Well,
talking about,
live.
yeah. But Gordon Higginson, you know, is a great example of a medium that was able to bring through some incredible evidence. You know, there's so many mediums. I mean, and you know, we still have mediums like that today. Like Eileen Davies is an incredible example of mental medium. She does different things of mediumship as well, trance mediumship, all that. But she does street addresses. I mean, it's very specific, which is, you know, incredible. And I'm still, you know, sometimes I have little moments like that where I bring through information. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. You know what I mean? But I'm still, you know, not anywhere near her development level at this time.
Which, for people to understand what you're saying, because I'm with you, I'm trying to break through certain barriers that I know in my mind I'm keeping myself back from, is what you're saying about I'm trying to get to that level. It's that surrender that I'm able to do, where I'm sure you're way above where I am because you've been doing this a lot longer and have a lot more trust in that. I think I'm still working on the surrender. Anyway, that's what that's about being a, because it's not that either one of us can't put out this whole Rolodex of whatever information we want to. It's that we limit ourselves through our own, because we're working through our mind, whether we think we are or not. We're trying to put it back and not allow it, but we're still working through it. So it's the more that we keep doing, and that's why you keep talking about the inner work, because that's what we're working on. And I've talked a lot about that, about doing things that will help you to quiet the mind, to allow the mind to let go. That's not an easy thing to do when you like controlling things.
Yeah. And honestly, even as you're going through your development and you're gaining more confidence and you're having more consistency with your quality of evidence and all of that, these things keep coming back up, you know, like the more you are out there doing this, the more they're going to keep coming back up, and you have to constantly deal with them. You have to learn how to, you know, move past them. And so it's, yeah, like it is a lot of inner work, a lot of personal work, a lot of moving past your own stuff, really. So anything to do with not trusting fully, not surrendering, having confidence issues, being afraid of being wrong, like all of these things are going to get in your way with your development.
The being wrong thing, that's a big one. No, that's very true. Really, I like you said in the beginning, though, I think it is a lifetime of development. I think that we'll always be doing that. We'll always find a new chink, a new little area that we get to go delve into and figure out why we're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What are, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so tell me more about tell me more about some of the things that you've seen that you are like, that's not it. The mediumship. Like, what are the things that you've seen? Because I kind of want to get into that, you know, like really kind of, you know, and obviously without naming names or anything like that, but just examples of maybe not the best quality of mediumship. And, you know, obviously people are going to have off days, right? No one's going to be like perfect all the time. There's going to be things, but still we are doing this work, and it's still important that we do our best and show up each time.
Well, I think I agree with you. And I know with me, you know, it's like calling the kettle black. I'm consider myself very much a newbie. So I'm still trying to figure out what I am doing and how I'm doing it and what's right and what's wrong. And like, I was watching with a friend of mine, a demonstration where the whole night was just about fishing. And you talked about the fishing, right? It's about whether you're saying a sentence and a question in a way of trying to fish for a name or fish for a place or fish for an experience, or you would know that you had this jewelry. What was the jewelry you had? I mean, that's
Right.
fishing. And for me, that's just that person's insecurity of being able to just go in and pull that information out. So for me, it's really educating people about really just answering yes, no, or maybe, and not giving any information, because even people, when I practice with them that are mediums know better, they still get all excited. You know, we all get all excited. So I understand that's a part of this whole experience, and knowing that your loved ones, they're talking with you. But it's so, so important for you to, if you really want to connect with your loved one, to not feed that information to the person who's reading for you. So for me, that's just like a blanket, don't do it and everything will be good. But the other part that I'm seeing more is exactly what you're talking about, and it all comes from, I think, the fear of a medium looking bad, like you said, being wrong or not being worthy or not being good enough, or any of our problems that we're not going through. So now I have more compassion for them, which I didn't have a couple weeks ago. That was a process. Had to go through a process through that, because they're still just coming from their own fear, right? And like this one lady who I know really has touted herself as being this big time medium, and she's so great at it. And I've worked with best and whatever. And she really was bad.
Yeah, that happens. That does.
Bad.
I think for me, it really comes down to like not having particularly good training as well, because you know, like I said, with Michael, he is very, very much like, no, you make statements. We don't do that. That's not how we do this. You know what I mean? So I was trained very well in that regard. Like that is not even something my mind, because it is our minds coming in also. That is our mind saying, I want to know this information and give that to me from the sitter. You know what I mean? Where we don't want to be doing that. So I was trained very much to stay out of my mind and to just let the spirit world give everything that comes. And so I don't have this whole like getting in my mind, questioning things and like all that. That's not how I do mediumship. So when I see that kind of stuff, that just tells me, yeah, they're just not, they didn't have the kind of training I had, and that they don't realize that potentially, or that, yeah, the confidence issues, or, you know, not wanting to seem like they aren't good at what they're doing. I don't know why that is, but I definitely have seen it a lot. And especially with United States mediums, I have, and even big names, you know, I'm sure we've all seen it, you know, on the shows and things like that as well. So
it's interesting that I found out about that though, after I had experienced this, because like I said, you know, it all does come from one training. If we're not trained in the right way, then we don't know better. So I agree with this one person just needed more training. But the fact that it comes from your ego and your fear also. So after I experienced this whole thing, then I'm more hyper aware to what I'm doing, because I'm always like analyzing, what did I do? Should I do it better? How should I do it to do it better? Always, how did I get that? Or what did I see? What did I feel? And I'm learning as I go along, right? That's our experience. So after I think it must have been like 2 days later, I go into a reading and I'm hearing myself going, so you would know, and then I would ask a question, because what we were talking about before, it's not wrong to ask a question as long as you have evidence. And so what I notice is that if I'm going through my doubt, like I'm not sure or things don't make sense to me in some way, then I'll start a question. And then I have to all of a sudden weave it around into a statement, because I'm determined I will not ask a question. So we understand that there's these times where you're adjusting to whatever you're learning or wherever you're at. So you have a growing period, I think. I was surprised. So the two things I noticed from that, when I'm not sure, like I'm getting this information, I'm not really sure about the information, or I'm doubting it myself, which is my brain is there, my ego is working instead of I'm allowing. I'll either do a question or I'll do a lot of hums, you
Yeah,
would,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, right away. I'm like, nope, go back to spirit because you're in your head now. Now you're, yeah. So,
That's just a confidence thing, honestly, is what that is, and
yeah,
holding on to the information because you're afraid to say it.
yeah,
So it's more of, going from when you're asking a question, it's a lot less confident sounding than you're making a statement. And so the more you can let go of being afraid of getting it wrong, the better you're going to be. Because if you are getting it wrong, that's okay too, because that's telling you something and teaching you something as well. So that means it's saying, okay, there's something that I'm doing that I need to look at, and why is it wrong? Is it because I'm misinterpreting what's there? Am I giving it a spin with my mind, even though I've received this one thing, but now I've gone on up a story from my mind and I'm giving that, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of those noticing, like you're talking about looking at what you've been doing. You notice these things, and it's very subtle. It can go from getting information from spirit in 1 second to having your mind coming in the second after and then trying to interpret it. And that's where we have to work on, separating those things and just giving what you're getting. That's really, I've found very much, again, this is something I learned from Michael, but I found very much true for my own self as well. But that if you're giving information just as you get it, it's almost always correct. If you take the information and interpret it, then they don't understand what it is. So
and we know that. I know that,
yeah,
but yeah, and like you said, it is confidence. It's still figuring that. I think it's because that's a part of the development that you were talking about, because we have our team and our team is working with us. Our spiritual team is working with us and we're working with them. So we've got that kind of growth period, right? And we're always growing. Like today I was doing a reading and I realized I had seen this man who was like very straight up and very organized. And I've seen this before. And all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, I've seen this before. So I'm thinking he's very much like an accountant or very controlling or something like
right.
that. Every time I've seen that, it's been a military person. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm never going to forget that one again now,
Yeah.
ever.
Well, I would say stay open too, because all of that is interpretation, right?
Yes.
So if you can just say, this is what I'm experiencing, and then the next piece of information comes to
Right.
say, oh, this is a military person, you know what I mean? Or he's an accountant. It will come to you as
Right.
you start to give the information,
Mhm.
instead of letting the mind go, oh, this is what that means. You know what I mean? That's
Mhm.
what's happening.
Yeah.
And so that's where you have to just be like, nope, I'm going to just wait on spirit. I'm just going to wait here. I'm not going to interpret it. I'm not going to do any of that. They're going to give me the information that's pertinent to be known, because they're intelligent and they know what needs to be said.
But you bring up a good point with that statement, and something that I've seen time and time again is the way that you would read as a medium, and the maybe the, I don't want to say faults, but the maybe weaknesses that you may have in your mediumship will also indicate what you are as a person, how you live as a person. There's
Yeah.
similarities to how you're going to read and how you live your life too, is what I've seen.
Yeah.
Especially that particularly is one of my personal traits, as well as how I would read in doing mediumship reading, which is interesting to me. Is now when I watch people that I know do mediumship, I'll be more heightened aware to what they're doing, because I'm looking for those things, not because I'm trying to pick them apart, because it validates to me, oh, okay, that's a trait that I have, so I need to be working on this even more. So we learn actually from watching other mediums how to be
Oh
better.
yeah, definitely, definitely do. I think also too that when you're really in the power, so the power of spirit, the presence of spirit, and you
Mhm.
really just sort of fall into that, you don't really have the mind coming in. You don't really have that confidence thing. You kind of just are in that power, and then the things just start flowing. You know what I mean? So you get this flow
Mhm.
down, and you're just like this. You know what I mean? And so moving into that power, being able to be
Mhm.
aware of that, I think
Yeah,
is so important too with mediumship,
yeah.
because I see so many mediums working kind of without the power, honestly, or kind of just, I don't know
Mhm.
what's going on with them, to be perfectly honest. It's like they either don't move into the power properly, or they're like keeping spirit almost further away. It feels like it's like they don't have that presence, that power, that thing that is like the presence of spirit there with them. And that's really where you're going to get all the information, and you're going to have that nice flow and that thing where you don't have to worry about your mind coming in so much, because you're literally like in it. You're in that flow. You're in that
Right.
space where that just doesn't happen.
Right. And that's a good point. That's a very good point. Because again, it's going back to your ego. It's going back to yourself, your mind, your mental mind, versus allowing spirit just to work through you, which you bring up a really good point, which would be, you're like, what good point did I just bring? Where the hell is she going now? What you're talking about brings you to another form of, which you had spoken about, another form of doing mediumship would be trance mediumship. And since I've been working with Michael and working in trance, and I've seen a big change in my mediumship and in the trust, because exactly what you were talking about, that blending with spirit, has gotten a lot more deep, and I'm feeling it a lot closer, which also helps you to be able to be a servant instead of a human talking voice.
Yeah, definitely. And, for me, trance mediumship, and I've been sitting now for close to 3.5 years for trance weekly. So for me, it's like a very special time to sit for trance and have that blending with those that work with me, and to, allow them to do whatever it is that they're going to do. And to have that trust, and to have that surrender, like you're talking about. And it definitely does help with all aspects of mediumship. And, there's the old saying of, trance only enhances. And so it's entrancement. It's allowing the spirit world to be so close to you that they are really impressing you with the information that's coming through without your mind being present as much as possible. Obviously, we're going to go through stages, and it's going to depend even on that day, how present your mind is, how much you're able to let go. But I know that, it's a really special gift to us, really, as mediums, to have that closeness, that blending with the other world.
I have to say, since I have done trance, that my mediumship has become more special to me, I think, and a lot deeper to me, because you're right. When you get into that connection with spirit, that just pure love and that pure freedom and connection, it's just, you don't want to come out of it. It's just, there's no explanation to the feeling of doing that. It's just amazing. And it's amazing to feel that love that the spiritual world shows upon us, that I think in our everyday lives we forget is really there for all of us each and every day.
Yeah. And that, that brings me back to that personal experience, because it's hard for people to understand what that feels like unless they've experienced it.
Yeah.
And, in my life, I was always sensitive to energies, but I didn't always know what it meant. You know what I mean? So when I was like a young teenager, and I grew up without any religion. I'm Jewish, but I didn't grow up having the Jewish traditions necessarily, except for a few holidays. We all celebrate Christmas, and we just sort of are all over the place, but there was no connection to God, or there was no connection to that higher power through any of it. And so when I was a teenager, I was kind of searching, and, I've always kind of searched for something, and which is why in mediumship, I was like, aha, I know what this is now. But I was at church once when I was like about 15, not just once, several times, where I was there and I would just start crying. And it would, because I felt so touched. And it was the presence of spirit. It was that Holy Spirit that I was feeling, but I didn't know what it was at the time. And not until I started sitting for trance, or sitting in the power, did I feel that again. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know what this is now. It's spirit. It's the presence of spirit. But I didn't understand what it was. I didn't know how it affected me. You know what I mean? So I would just, you've had that experience, I'm sure, where you felt that love. It's so immense that the tears just start coming, and it's like, you can't control it. It's just this feeling of this being held by this immense love that feels so much bigger and greater than what we experience even here. The only thing I can compare it to is when I held my daughter in my arms for the first time after having her. My heart opened and exploded, and this love was there that I never knew I could feel before. And that's the only thing I can compare it to.
I think you're right, as a mother as well. That's the closest I think you can come to experiencing. I even know, as you were saying that, I love my kids. I still, to this moment, remember holding both of my kids when they were born. I just remember it like it was yesterday. But the feeling when you connect to the spiritual world and your whole spiritual, it's just, you can't describe it. It's the words just can't describe the love and the connection and the peace and the knowledge and the wisdom. It's just so amazing. It is. Amazing.
It is.
So with that being said, um, what would be one of the biggest tips from your experience as being a medium, other than don't feed the medium, to help people to understand how to go about sitting for a reading and how to be a good sitter?
Okay. So this is from the perspective of those coming for the reading.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So have an open mind. Don't come with it has to be this. They have to say this one phrase. Like that's going to hold up
Yeah.
the energy because it actually takes all three of us. So it takes the medium, the spirit world, and the person receiving the information to have a nice flow. The more relaxed they are, the more relaxed the medium is going to be, the better the information is going to come through. Because when the medium is very relaxed and feels comfortable and doesn't have this uptight feeling of like nervousness, the information flows so much better. It's like taking a cork off a bottle, to have the things come out, we have to have that open flow. So the more open you can be, the more supportive you can be, the more, just being able to, again, just say the yes, no, or I don't know is important. Knowing that the medium doesn't control what's coming through or who comes through, I think is really important. Now, there are times where, sorry, my voice is starting to get a little, excuse me, starting to get a little like that. But okay, so there are times definitely where I can bring through who comes forward, right? And that might be the people that we're hoping to hear from, but there might be one or two people that we're hoping to still hear from. And on occasion, if they say, okay, I was really hoping to hear from this one person, just by saying the relationship, just the relationship, I'm able to sometimes tune into that. So it just depends kind of where we're at. I think it depends on the spirit. It depends on how that's working. It also depends on how open we are in our minds, as far as what we can perceive and who comes forward. So I know that, those are all things that are helpful as far as being a recipient of the information. Also knowing that sometimes mediums get it wrong. Like that happens. That does happen. But if it's a no, know that the medium should be able to necessarily go back and to the spirit and see if you can say it a different way. Sometimes there's slight misinterpretations of how you're saying it for them to then accept it as a yes. Sometimes they also give information that can be validated outside of the reading. And also sometimes people just plain forget, the information, it comes to them later. So that can happen. And, for the medium, it's just a matter of don't get caught up on any of it. You just keep going. You just keep moving with it. Obviously, if you're having a off day and like you're not hitting things properly, then there's something not quite right there. But if you're, flowing with it and you're getting mostly yeses and there's something that feels sort of, but you can feel it like as a medium, as you are more developed and you are working professionally, that sort of thing, you can tell when it's like, no, this is the information. And the person's just like not remembering. You're just like, okay, no worries. Just hold on to that for now. And we'll just keep moving. You know what I mean? You just keep going. So I think that those are all important things to have an understanding of. And yeah, we're not robots. We are not robots. We are human beings just like you. And, don't come in like, prove it to me, super skeptical. Yes, or a cynicism. Like you can have healthy skepticism. That's important again, because we're looking for evidence. But if you come in all closed-minded and like, prove it to me or however, the medium's going to have a harder time connecting. And that's just true.
It is true because the cycle of a reading is the sitter, the medium, and the communicator, your loved one. And if there is a problem in that energy swing, then you're going to have an issue with communication. So not that you go in to see a medium and say, oh, I'm just going to roll over and whatever. Because like you said, you have to have a good amount of caution to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
To go in and just assume that it's all going to be hogwash or whatever, is going through your mind, then that you are changing that energy to being a lot more challenging. Not that a medium can't do it, but you are making it a little harder in what's happening because you're shutting that medium down. The energy in the room is very, especially a medium that's sensitive is going to feel it. And so that's Yeah, it's really, that's an important, thank you. That's an important thing. Because I did want to come back to you about the no's and explaining to people, because you get a no on the first time is not necessarily that the medium got it wrong.
Right.
It's that the medium did not say it in a way that resonated with how you would understand it.
Exactly.
But what you brought up was a good statement, because what exactly is the medium doing when a medium is looking into their loved one? Are they actually seeing their father there?
Some people claim that. I don't have that. For me, I hear some mediums say, "Oh, I can see the father standing behind the person." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. That doesn't happen to me." For me, it works more on, like, I use all of my clairs, but I have subjective clairvoyance, right? So I'm
Right.
seeing it in my mind's eye instead of objective in the room like that.
Right.
It's still clairvoyance either way. But for me, it starts with feeling. So it starts with having that presence, that power, that awareness of spirit with me, starting to get information like that. And then I, use all the other clairs. So I have the clairsentience, the claircognizance, which is the knowing. Clairsentience is feeling. I have the clairvoyance, which is seeing, clairaudience, which is hearing. And I also get smells. So we also get tastes and smells, but most of the times it smells for me if I'm going to get that sort of thing. So I don't see them in the room. I wouldn't object to it if that's what started happening for me. I would be like, all right, cool. Yeah, so it's going to be a little different for everybody, but cultivating that awareness of the presence, I think, is so important, because it's then more tangible for us. Then it's like more obvious, like, oh, there's a spirit present with me. There's someone here. Oh, there's a change in the energy. There's something that's changed that I now can start talking about. So that's all part of it. I feel like there was something I wanted to say too about something we were just saying before this about I was going to say too. So you were talking about, you can still work as a medium when you're having a tough client like that. But I definitely know for me, it's much more draining. I can tell I'm using a lot more power. I'm using a lot more of my energy to get through it. And it just doesn't have that smooth flow sometimes, that the way that when someone's just open and like, let the spirit world come and, guide the session. Because like for me, that's how I work. I'm like, I'm here to be a medium. I'm here to let them speak, to let them guide the session, because again, they know what's needed.
Exactly. And not that if somebody who comes in like that, it's not that that is necessarily bad, because that's their doorway into whatever understanding or direction in life that they're going. But to know that when you do that, you are shutting down potential information that could come through to help you even more. So, I mean, everybody comes in where they're at, and we have to deal with it the best that we can. But you're going to somebody for guidance. And again, though, I have to come back to, if you go to a medium, don't give them your power right away. But you're going for guidance for a reason, or you're going to connect with your loved one for a reason. So to be as open and without giving information, honest and accepting as you can, then you're opening up for a better communication.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. No, I definitely have a lot of people that are like, I'm skeptical. I'm like, that's cool. I am too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But as long as they're like open-minded to listening to what comes forward, that's all that matters to me.
Exactly. That's what counts. So I don't know. I've been wanting to ask you this all night, so I'm going to ask this now. What is the most like outlandish, out there reading or experience that you've had in mediumship? I haven't been there long enough, so I can't answer that.
I don't know. So here's the thing, because when I work, there's some times where there can be times where really cool stuff can stick in my mind that is different maybe than what I maybe typically have. But most of the time, I don't remember my readings. Like, I don't really remember what comes through or who I've worked with. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of recognize your face. Like, if someone comes back, I'm like, I kind of, but like, I don't remember the information because I'm so in the power that it's just coming through me, like some of the cool things. I'm sorry, what?
That was a perfect answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I can say like a couple things.
Is a good medium because she doesn't remember. I'm the same as you. I don't remember. It's like it goes through me. I don't remember. But I know that you've had funny situations though.
Funny situations. I'm trying to
No, you can't.
I know. Say, like, there's been some cool things that have happened where like I'll smell. So sometimes, we get smells. Like I said, we might get a smell of a perfume, but
Uh-huh.
there's been a couple times now where I had this specific perfume. Like I knew this specific perfume through the smell. And
Yeah.
like when it's like something like that, I'm like, that is way cool to me because there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of perfumes in the world. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? So when I
Yeah.
smell something and then the information of like, oh, it's this perfume comes through, like that's the kind of stuff I'm like, oh, that's really cool when that kind of stuff happens. Or there's been times where like I just get a ton of names that come through.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen. I don't even always have names for
Yeah.
readings. It doesn't always happen. But sometimes there's just a lot of things like that can happen.
Yeah.
And I always think those are kind of fun. And it's not to say they're necessary because it's more about having that feeling of that awareness of the person there and being able to describe them and like all of that, I think is even more important sometimes than a name.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun for a medium to have those like very specific moments. I'm trying to think of like weird stuff. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Well, it's okay. You don't have to. I was just curious. But you brought up a good point because for me right now when I'm practicing, I'm working at getting addresses, street names, describing a home and being very detailed into the home or the names of somebody. But the thing with me, especially right now with names, I really want to focus in and because I know they're there. I know I can get them. And so this is where my ego gets into play though. It's like I know it's there and you're just stopping it. So stop stopping it. But anyway, the point of that being to what you said is that to get the name isn't always the message. To get the name isn't always what's going to be the most important thing for that sitter. And that's a part of a good medium and why you are who you are is because you don't focus on that. I do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to point that out.
Yeah.
But the important information is going to come through, not the ones the medium ones.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is like, I know everyone wants the names and they want the specifics, but that comes in time. It just does. The more open and free you can be with your mediumship, the more trusting you can be, the more likely those things will come through. So when we're trying for it, we're just closing our energy down essentially, and it's not going to come. So the more, we're doing the opposite of what we're always been told to do, which is do, achieve, achieve. And we can't do that with mediumship. We have to actually be very, very open, relaxed, and wait. Essentially, we're just waiting for something to change. We're waiting for this information to start to come through. And once we do, then we move into that flow. We move into that space where more details can come in. And so I always think it's interesting because I used to ask Michael the same thing of like, how do I get names? How do I do? He's like, there's really nothing you can do besides just keep developing and keep trusting and doing, being open. I know that there's different concepts about it. And I know there's different mediums that are going to be like study phone books and study names. And I think that there's a partial truth to that to say like, obviously the medium is their references are being used, right? But we hear so many names. It's not like you have to like know every name that is out there. If they're able to bring it through to you in some way, they will,
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And I'm in agreement with you because I know for me, and I do have to preface when I'm doing that in a practice. I don't do that when I'm doing a reading. When I'm doing a reading and I'm focusing on the reading and I'm not working on a weakness that I may have. So I just want to preface that. All mediums are always practicing and working to keep developing. And we don't do the same thing when we're doing an actual reading for somebody. But I'm with you in all the information that is available to us is there. It's us that, like you've said this several times tonight, it's us that is blocking it. The medium is blocking it. And that's why the inner work is important because we're using all of our clairs. So there's surely some way that a spirit will be able to get to us their name if that's what's important for us to know.
Yeah. I
all information that way.
And I think too, again, it's going to vary per time you sit, you know what I mean? And do this. Some days you're just going to be on fire and like anything and everything can come through. And some days it's going to be a little bit less so, and it's going to sort of just depend on you in that day. And are you well rested? Did you have enough water? Did you take care of your personal needs, your emotional needs? Like how much can you put yourself aside? Like all those sort of things is all part of it.
Right. So we kind of went all over the gamut here. I don't know that we to course on this one, but I don't care. It's my show. If you don't like it, fire me. What do you think would be your last like golden nuggets you would like to leave people in either side? Because we have definitely talked about sitters and we've talked about communicators and we've talked about mediums. So you pick.
Mhm, mhm. I think the things like don't compare yourself to other mediums or to other people in general, because it literally is a joy stealer and not useful. And you're going to be your own person. Your
Mhm,
development is your own, your unfoldment is unique. And it's all part of the journey of understanding yourself and your mediumship. And if it takes you, 5 years, or it takes you 2, or it takes you 20, it doesn't really matter. It's just part of the journey.
yeah,
And really learning about your own soul, because this is a spiritual development also. It's
mhm,
not just about mediumship mechanics. It isn't.
yeah,
It's personal development, it's spiritual development, and mediumistic. So this is all part of the journey of that. And to know that you're going to have difficult times, and you're going to have times where you're celebrating and excited, and you're going to have the whole gambit of that. And that's normal. And just keep going forward. Really, that's the
yeah,
thing, is you don't give up if this is something you love. If this is something
yeah.
you love, and you want to help people, and you want to develop this, and keep
Mhm,
going. Don't let your fears stop you from living your life and doing this work. And I think that's so important. And I think that part of the thing with mediumship for me is one of the things that I feel that the spirit world really loves to bring forward is that our time here is short.
yeah,
And while our eternal selves is long and forever, right?
yeah,
This time, this life is short, and it goes by fast. And so not to let your fears or your things like that stop you from living and doing where you feel called, and
mhm,
following your heart, following your intuition for that. Because yes, our society has certain you know, ways about it that we are navigating through, and we have to work in the parameters of. But I think that things are shifting and changing a little bit more in that regard.
yeah,
And I just think that following what works best for you, instead of what you're, trying to make someone else happy, is so
mhm,
important. And just, yeah,
mhm.
following that.
That's a good message, whether you want to do mediumship or not, whether you're becoming an accountant or a police chief or I don't even know
Yeah.
where that comes from, but whatever you do in life,
Yeah.
the things that keep us back is fear and
Yes.
giving up. And it's about, if you really love it, you're going to just keep going back to it. Like for me, during this journey, I've quit. I don't even know how many times. It's like I'm done. But, the very next minute I'm back to
Yeah.
doing something because it's something that I'm very passionate about. And like you, I've always been very spiritual. So to me, this is just another leg of my spirituality and my growth in that world. So
Mhm.
you do what you love to do. Just don't let anybody stop you from it. So that's the
Yeah.
whole message to this whole thing. Do you?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just I really try to help people follow their heart, but to be able to be discerning between their mind and their heart and their intuition, because our
Yeah.
minds love to direct and do and interpret and all these things, and just having discernment between those things is important. But yeah.
That's
So
very true.
yeah.
Everybody, you guys have been really quiet tonight. Here you have Megan here to answer your questions, and I haven't really gotten any questions. You've been talking, but no questions. Thank you, Laura, for all your comments. I didn't get back to them because when I get into these interviews, then I concentrate on the speaker. But you had a lot to say.
I
Thank you.
can't
That's
see any of
cool.
the comments. I don't know what's happening with that. So I don't know what she's saying.
she
Yeah.
she was very chatty. She had a lot of really good stuff, a lot of really good stuff. But thank you everybody for being here. And if you okay, before I go, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. Who are you? Where do they find you?
Sure. Okay. So, well, for one, my website is meganalisamedium.com, and that's where you can schedule readings, or find out about my events. I can't talk now that we've been talking for such a long time about mediumship. My speech is gone. But my events. So I have a platform demonstration of mediumship coming up with Alan Wellman, who has
Mhm.
also been on your show, I believe. We're doing mediumship February the 20th. And so you can get a ticket for that on my website. we're going to be connecting in with people's loved ones and giving information, evidence, and messages for that. That will be online through Zoom. And then also, like I was saying earlier, Michael Mayo and I are going to be teaching a 6-week course together, which I'm really excited about. And that will start March the 6th and also is available on my website. If you're on TikTok, I'm at Megan Alisa Medium. And I do a lot of fun videos there. So I'd love to have you come follow me. I'm also on Instagram, but it's at She's Got a Rebel Heart, because that name came to me before I was, kind of establishing myself as I am now. And I just love that name. Literally, names come to me. And so I feel like that still fits for me. And so I don't want to change it.
Don't.
But yeah, so those are the ways you can find me, and I'm happy to connect and answer questions and things too.
Awesome. And you have the class with Michael. I'm going to say that again. So they can also connect to you through Facebook too, right?
It's just, Facebook's a little bit not as active, I would say, for me, as most of the things from my Instagram are posted onto Facebook through just like automatically. But yes, you can connect with me there also. And it would be the same name, Megan Alisa Medium.
That you have I think you do. I think I've seen it on your Facebook page to go to your webpage. So just saying, to make it easier. All of it's linked, somehow through somewhere you're going to find you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here and watching this, and all of you that are watching the replay. If you have any questions or comments, please put it in the chat, and we'll get back to you on that. And have a lovely, lovely evening. And thank you so much, Megan, for your time.
Thank you, Joanne, for having me. It was so nice to chat with you and be here. And if you guys have questions or whatever. Oh my God, I forgot about my YouTube channel. Hold on. I'm also on YouTube. I also do educational content on YouTube. So just for that, sorry. Anyway, but yes, thank you all for being here and joining us today. It was so nice just to talk about mediumship with you, Joanne.
Thank you. I hope that we've answered a lot of your questions on both sides of the spectrum, whether mediumship or being a sitter for a medium reading. So, all right, everybody, take care.